All right, we made it. We're at the Bad Monkey season finale. Was it worth it? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and we made it. We made it through 10 episodes. I shouldn't say made it through. These are great 10 episodes. We're finally at the end of Bad Monkey Season 1, Episode 10. We're in the memory making business. It comes to Apple TV Plus on October 19th, 2024. It is the 10th episode, is the season finale. Was this a vacation worth taking? My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. I liked this series throughout. I liked this finale. It ties up a lot of the loose ends. It has a really great opening, some interesting ending parts, and a bunch of plot twists. I did love how some of the ending stuff kind of happened, but overall, I thought it was a pretty strong ending. It's not my favorite episode of the series, but it is a very good season finale for a really good show. So I definitely think you should check it out. If you haven't seen Bad Monkey yet, it's worth the watch. It's worth kind of getting on that train, seeing all 10 episodes. They're fun, they're funny, they're digestible. So definitely watch it. And if you haven't seen Bad Monkey yet, catch up. So I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, and you probably don't, there are some pretty big surprises, especially with how certain things work out. I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free and let you know when I get to those spoilers. So in Bad Monkeys episode 10, you have the continuation of what happened at the end of episode 9. Remember, at the end of episode 9, Gracie fully became the Dragon Queen. She had this like awesome face makeup, this sweet knife. It was raining. She confronted Eve, basically telling her to get off the island, like stop destroying her island, stop corrupting her people. And so Gracie had a knife, and it looks like she was going to do something to Eve. Well, we find out what happens at the start of this episode. It doesn't really go how Gracie planned, but it definitely was a big surprising ending. And then we get to see kind of the fallout of that encounter and all the other things that have happened during this season. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, I love the opening. It was a really, really good opening. It was a fun kind of like shocking start, which was important. It was a really good way to like grab you and keep hold of you. So definitely this episode starts very strong. Second thing I love the plot twist. I thought it would be a pretty generic kind of wrap up, but there were some big twists along the way, which I liked, some things I didn't expect, but they do help to like explain the story and tie it up. Which leads me right into the third thing I love, tying up some loose ends. There were a lot of loose ends that were tied up. Not all of them. I assume they want some loose ends for season 2, but it seems like most of the main storylines at least had some resolution, so you can kind of like keep comfort there. And the last thing I loved, most of the ending. I liked a lot of the ending, but I didn't love everything about it. But there were a bunch of different storylines, a bunch of different characters. They made sure to kind of reference a lot of the characters that we met. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good ending. I thought it tied things up nicely, just not perfectly. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, not enough of some key characters. Some key characters met along the way we didn't really get to see much of. And I don't know, I liked seeing them. I wanted to see more of them. They were kind of like missing from this. It focused mainly on the events of the island. So some of the characters that weren't on the island didn't really get much time. Second thing I didn't love, it's Bad Monkey. You expect a monkey to have a little bit more time. Not much Driggs in this episode. Again, not a huge disappointment, but a little bit of a disappointment. I like Driggs. He seems to have like been very prominent in the first 2 episodes, and then after that, just kind of like went away. Maybe he was tough to work with. Maybe he was a prima donna. I'm not sure, but need more monkey. And the last thing I didn't love, there was some revenge in this episode that was important for the story. I just didn't love how it turned out. I will go into that in the recap, but just know that there's some revenge here that I didn't really love. So all that being said, there were some negatives. Overall, I liked this episode a lot. I like the series a lot. I definitely think you should check it out. So make sure to check out Bad Monkey Season 1, Episode 10, coming to Apple TV Plus on October 9th, 2024. And if you haven't seen the rest of them, hurry up, go see them, and then watch this one, because it's been a pretty good series so far, and it makes me excited for whatever comes next in this world. So I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this episode, and you probably don't, there are some big surprises in this episode. I would turn it off right now because there will be spoilers. So Bad Monkey episode 10 pretty much takes place on the island, so I'm just going to kind of go through that chronologically. There aren't many jumping storylines, so we'll just go on the island. So it starts with Gracie attacking Eve. She threatens Eve with the knife, but then there was a lightning strike that hits a tree branch that falls down near them and kind of like breaks up their fight. Gracie grabs a knife, goes up to Eve, but Eve pushes Gracie, and Gracie falls back onto a tree, and a tree branch just kind of like splits through her chest. So, not good for Gracie. before Gracie does die, she looks at Eve and says, "I hope you choke on your lies." That's an important line. Remember that. Now, before dying, Gracie kind of like astral projects herself into a few places, a few key people that we've met along the way. She visits Yaya, she visits Egg, and she visits Lulu, the new kind of like sensitive person that we met last episode. So it seems like Lulu is going to be the next dragon lady, or at least the next person to be trained by Yaya. So it seems like she might have an important role in the future, and she is definitely kind of being ordained by the Dragon Queen. So after Eve does this, after Gracie kind of like dies, Eve goes back to Chris and she basically says like we need to leave, and she gives Chris his watch back because Gracie had pulled it out during their encounter to like show her that she'd taken it from her. But after Gracie died, Eve scooped that up and gave it back to Chris to cheer him up because he is not doing that well. He's in a lot of pain. His wound looks like it's getting infected. It is like yellow now, so that's not a good sign. And he's also having trouble walking. He can't really move his legs. He can only move his toes. So it seems like a spinal injury. So they need to get him out of here for multiple reasons. A, to get into like really good medical care so they can maybe salvage his, walking. But also they just need to leave here because it seems like their entire thing is found out. Now, as they're kind of planning to leave, uh, you know, Eve tells Egg like her plan of like, oh, like we'll get him to good care and they'll fix him up. And Egg's like, yeah, exactly. That's how spinal injuries work. They just kind of like fix you up and make you better, which causes the wheels of Eve's head to start to turn. So, meanwhile, Yancey is trying to figure out how to get Eve out of there, and he uses Director Rhodes over in the States to set a trap. She calls a contact in the Andros government and tells him, hey, we're giving you a courtesy call. We are going to freeze Eve and Nick's assets at the end of the day because we have evidence that they are committing a crime. Seems like too easy of a trap because they would not give them a heads up. Why would they give them a heads up? They would just freeze the assets. But they do this so that then they know that that person is going to call Eve, telling her that their assets are going to be frozen, and then Eve is going to try to go to the bank to get the money. So meanwhile, while this is all happening, Yancey and Neville come up with a plan. They get the gun that Rosa used to escape from Egg, the gun that Neville found a long time ago. Well, he didn't find it. One of his friends found it, gave him to Neville so that Neville could then confront, I think, Egg with it, and then Rosa confronted Egg with it. Now that gun is lost because Rosa threw it in the woods after she shot Egg. So they go to find that gun. They find that gun and they set a trap. So Yancey goes to confront Eve when the banks open at 1 p.m. And when she goes to try to like get all their money out, but she turns the tables. See, unfortunately for Yancey, he befriended the pilot, and the pilot does not have the best judgment. So he was at the restaurant, the bar, eating conch fritters because he is obsessed with those. Egg saw him, and so when Egg saw him, he knew that someone was back in, like Yancey was back in town, something like that, and that caused him to then tip off Eve, who set a trap for Yancey. When Yancey tries to get Eve, which this seems kind of loose, but it's fine. It sets up this trap. So when Yancey confronts Eve, the Andros police pull up and they confront Yancey. And Eve accuses him of shooting Egg with that gun that he has in his hand. Not good for him. And also, Eve accuses him of stabbing her husband in the back with a fishing pole. So the police are like, oh, we'll get this all sorted out. Eve and Egg bounce, and that is when Neville comes up with a distraction. Their original distraction, I think, was he was going to drive the car up to take Eve, and then they were going to go like take her to America to extradite her. Well, it doesn't really work that way now. Neville drives this like red Mazda Miata, who I think is his girlfriend's Mazda Miata, right into the back of a car, like through the police. The police don't get hit, but they scatter right into the back of a car. Not a great plan. I don't think he had to slam it into the back of a car. He could have just distracted them, and then Yancey could have jumped in. Maybe Neville freaked out. I'm not sure, but he destroys his girlfriend's car, and then Yancey steals a police car to get Neville so that they could leave. So all sorts of crimes being committed. Not good for Neville, who lives here, and also not good for Yancey, who probably wants to go back to America. They bounce and they are able to escape. Now, Eve starts to plan their leaving. They're going to get on their yacht and go away. But before she does this, she double crosses someone closer. She double crosses Nick. She doesn't want to take him with her. He's going to be a burden. He's going to like cramp her style, I guess. He's getting pretty useless for her. He doesn't have an arm. He can barely move his feet. So she decides to just cut ties and move on. So she takes him in the wheelchair and just throws him off of a pier, which In the middle of the day, you would think that someone would have seen this. No one did. And also, in a very un-Eve-like decision, she doesn't take the watch that she just gave him, the very expensive watch. I guess she wanted to give him a parting gift. I don't know. So after this, Eve takes the yacht and bounces. I hope the yacht is filled up. She doesn't really know how to use the yacht. She barely knows how to turn it on, but she bounces. As the yacht is pulling out, Yancy and Neville are trying to stop her. Yancy jumps into the water, grabs a rope trailing from the yacht, and tries to hold on. And it looks like he is going to hold on until he like gives up because he can barely breathe. But then he has all these memories of all of his friends saying like, "You're doing too much. You're putting too much on yourself. You got to think of yourself." And he decides to let go of the yacht. So the yacht gets away. Now later, Nick's body was found. Apparently, Neville found it in the water. So he has like destroyed a car, stolen a police car, found a dead body, and I guess there's no consequences because apparently there's no consequences. So there we go. Neville also gets reunited with Driggs. This is the only time we see Driggs. He goes to pick up Lulu to walk her home and from Yaya's, and when he gets there, Driggs is there. He looks really happy to see him, and Yaya says, "It's okay, Driggs. You can go with him." And so Driggs goes to him, jumps up on his shoulder, just like in the first couple episodes, and they walk away. So what happened to Eve? Well, Eve apparently made it to Portugal somehow. She crossed the Atlantic. That seems very difficult in her yacht, but she did it. She's in Portugal. She is enjoying her life. She is eating baby carrots. Those are delicious, great snacks, good for your eyesight, but not good for her because as she's eating, she chokes on one. She starts choking, and this causes her to then, for some reason, stumble off of the top of this like building she's on and plummet to her death. Boom, she's dead. Okay. I did not love this. I mean, look, I'm happy that she got her comeuppance. She was a bad person and did a lot of bad things, but I wanted her to suffer a little more. Like she just kind of like quick death. I was hoping that she would suffer, maybe like, have to pay back the money, maybe have to do community service, like do something that she would really have not liked. She kind of died in a really nice place, looking great and very quickly. So I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that revenge, but I guess the island did get its revenge. Its powers stretched all the way to Portugal and got her. And Yaya's final words did come true. She said, "I hope you choke on your lies." And I guess she did. She choked on a carrot. So there we go. Now, Yancy, on the other hand, committed lots of crimes in Andros. So he is not a cop. It seems like he is still back on probation. He is re-inspecting restaurants. But he gets a happy surprise when his new neighbors pull in. Madeline and Pestov bought the destroyed house that was right next door on an auction. And so they bought the house, they're going to tear it down and build like a nice one-story house that gives them all great views and isn't like an eyesore for Yancey. So it's pretty great. I mean, Yancey had kind of the best situation there. People he likes are neighbors. They seem to like him. It seems like he is going to have a fun little block. And we also get a quick cameo from Bonnie. Bonnie and Yancey are on the phone, and apparently she's with Thomas in, I don't remember where, they're somewhere enjoying life. So Bonnie's enjoying life. But as they're talking, Rosa shows up, and Yancey quickly hangs up, and we see Rosa. Rosa and Yancey hook up. Rosa basically goes in there and is like, "Sex now." Yancey's like, "Okay." They hook up, and then Rosa breaks up with him, which I didn't love this either. Like, they were so good together. They should have stayed together. But Rosa tells him that she needs to be happy with herself before she can be with anyone. So she can't be with him because she's not happy with herself. I mean, yeah, work on yourself, but I don't know. Yancey seemed good for you. You seemed like you were good together. So I didn't love that part either. And then we see kind of like a montage of people being happy. We see Ro and his husband walking on the beach. They seem like they're happy. That Pilot and Mel seem to kind of like find each other, and they're both very, very talkative, so they're pretty happy with each other. That was a interesting, fun surprise. We see Madeline and Pestov being pretty happy. They have a new beach house, and they're just hanging out on the beach. We see our friend, the security guard that Yancey got fired. He is now apparently working for the FBI. Maybe Yancey called him a favor for him. Yancey seems to like know the director pretty well at this point. She like calls her, so maybe he called him a favor for him. We also see Neville with his girlfriend Tani, I think is her name, and he is on his land, the land that Nick bought from him, stole from him, whatever you want to call it. He is on that land now, and he and Tani are talking. He's like, "I think we should build a house here." And she's like, "We?" He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "With what money?" And then he tells Driggs to show her, and Driggs goes into his backpack and pulls out that watch that Nick had, the watch that like started all of this. Driggs now has it. Neville's going to pawn that watch and build a house. So, I mean, I liked that part. I thought that was fun. It just didn't seem very much like Eve to leave a $250,000 watch on the arm of the person she's about to kill. But it does make for a nice little point here. Now, back to Yancy. Yancy's hanging out at his house. He's just looking out at the water, kind of like, I think, contemplating his life. And Ro shows up. Ro is there. He like hangs out with Yancy for a little bit. It seems like this whole season has caused Ro to like really appreciate Yancy, even though I think he did. He just never really showed it. Now he is showing it. He is showing up to Yancy. They're hanging out. They're talking. And then Ro says, "Hey, I need some help with something." And Yancy initially tries to say like, "No, I don't want to help you. I can't. I'm not supposed to." But then he quickly gives in. He's gonna go help Ro. Maybe this will be the start of Bad Monkey season two. We will find out. But that is the end of Bad Monkey season one. So, like I said, I liked a lot about it. A lot of loose ends were tied up. A lot of characters were kind of like back in the story. It was a pretty short episode. It was only 40 minutes. I think you could have pushed out a little more, maybe had a few more things built in. Like, what about Bonnie? We saw Bonnie for like 2 seconds and then she was done. So I would like to see what happened to Bonnie. That neighbor who at the very end seemed like he was going to try to get revenge on Yancey because he was like bankrupt. We didn't even see him. He's just gone. Like he was going to like file a police report or something. Well, he's not there either. Driggs, we saw a little bit of, not enough for my taste. I mean, the show is Bad Monkey. I would have liked Driggs to maybe do something to help. I don't know. Maybe Driggs could have like distracted the cops. Who knows? But Driggs was also not in it very much. But and like I said, I didn't love like Eve's revenge, like the revenge that the island, that the world, that Karma got on Eve. It was effective. It felt a little bit too quick. So all that aside, I did like really like this episode. I really did like the series. I thought it was a fantastic series. So definitely check out Bad Monkey if you haven't already. If you are watching it this far, you're definitely going to watch Bad Monkey season one, episode 10. So it was a fun ride. It was a fun series. I can't wait to kind of see what happens next, see what the next season will bring. But until then, thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.